Hello, this is Mr. Green, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a study in watercolour paint. Now, the first thing is to sketch it out, just like you did on the pencil one and the coloured pencil. And it's really clear to me from looking at your work and watching you working that some of you haven't listened to the instructions. You really need to sketch it out in its most simple forms to begin with. So you need to look at it and think, that head is kind of like a circle. So you draw that in. The body is more or less a square. If you look at that, it's kind of, a square fits around that perfectly, doesn't it? And the body is slightly bigger than the head, but not much. So on your paper, you then draw a square and a circle with the square slightly bigger. That's how you need to start drawing. What I see a lot of people doing still, and we've been teaching you this since year 7, is they'll look at the picture and then they'll do a very dark outline all in one without lifting the pencil off the page, and that is completely wrong. You'll never do a good drawing like that. No artist draws like that, because it's impossible to get things in proportion and to get it right first time. So this is the way you need to begin. So we've got a simplified version of the bear, and then I'll start putting the shapes in. Now the body is wider than the head, so I'll add that on, and then it goes in a bit. I'll add that on, and you're comparing and making observations all the time. That's why it's called an observation drawing. So you're looking at the thing you're drawing, analysing it, and then making your picture the same. And when you use this method, you look at it once and then you do something that's approximately like it, but it's never going to be accurate. Right, the bottom feet are bigger than the top feet. You can see that, can't you? That one's slightly smaller. And whenever I say this to students, I say, look, that one's bigger than that. They can always see what I'm talking about, but so why did they draw it wrong? It's because you haven't looked. An accurate drawing comes from looking and seeing. It's not really about your drawing skills, it's about your looking skills. Right, this side, the body sticks out more than the head. Now mine stick out about the same, so I can correct that by moving this in. And notice there are lots of sketch lines in here. The technical term is construction lines, because you're building the picture. Haven't gone for the rubber yet, I'll do that at the end before I paint. There we go, and you can see I'm altering it until it gets more and more accurate. Now the nose, or whatever this triangle is here, is pretty much in the centre of the circle. Like that. And there is a little cheat you can do, which isn't quite tracing. You can fold it in half, and you can compare like that. And you can see mine more or less lines up, but I've drawn it slightly larger. There, if I hold the picture closer, you can see it lines up perfectly. So you can start drawing by completing one side, then you can take it away and complete the other side. That's another way of making it easier for yourself. Right, just like you did with the coloured pencil, you need to see where it's white and save those bits. Because if we paint over those, you won't be able to get them white again. There is a white in with the paint, but it will not make your paper white. So we'll put the white reflections in. Couple of white bits there. A bit like I did on the cherries, I'm not going to put every single white bit on there. I'm going to simplify it and make it a bit more manageable. Right, so there's the highlights, so I'll make sure I don't paint those. Next step is to mix your colours. So I know it's blue, but I'm going to add a little bit of green as well to get that turquoisey effect. So you've used watercolours lots of times before. You have to mix them on a tile. Get a bit of water on there, then you go round and round with the brush, not backwards and forwards. You don't want the bristles to spread out. If the bristles spread out, they will stay spread out, and that's that brush wrecked. If you get the paints in the dirty, like this one here is, you can either wipe it with a damp sponge, or what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold it above my water pot, go round and round with some water. You can't see it, it's just off screen. I'm just basically washing it with a paintbrush, and now it's clean. It's looking quite dark on the screen there. Right, so mixing the green and blue together to get a turquoisey colour. I've said this lots of times before, you don't need to get the exact colour. And now I'm going to paint all of the bear, apart from the white bits. So look how I do this. That's a bit too dark. Just watering it down a bit more. Right, so paint everything. Didn't even use the rubber, did I? But you'll find that those pencil lines, once I've got the dark shading on, they'll go. Now you want to be painting very quickly. You don't rub over each part or each area more than 2 or 3 times. If you keep rubbing backwards and forwards, you'll make a hole in the paper. And watercolour is always patchy. So I won't try to get it smooth, because watercolour doesn't like to do that. And when this is finished, you won't look at it, hopefully, and say, oh, that's really patchy. You'll just notice that it's been drawn quite accurately, and the shading makes it have a 3-dimensional effect. That's my aim anyway. Right, so leaving all the white bits, painting pretty much everything else. Turning the book round so that your brush is pointing at the line you're painting up to makes it far easier. So if I'm painting that line, I want the brush pointing at that edge. Turn it round so my brush is pointing at that. And turning your book round is much easier than twisting your arm like I'm doing here and paint it from that side. Right, that will dry very, very quickly, a minute or two. So I'm going to mix a medium blue next. Here we go. Right, so I'll mix on top of the one that I've already got, this medium blue. There we go. And then when that's dry, and you have to let it dry first. If it's still wet, the colours will run into each other, and the technical term, believe it or not, is bleeding. The colours will bleed, and you'll not be able to control where they go. Now the head's almost dry. That's not, but the head is. I'll start on the head. So now what we're going to do is going to paint everything again, apart from we're going to leave the white, and we're going to leave the bits that are light turquoise. So I'll paint all of this, because that's all quite dark. I'm going to leave a bit of turquoise around there. I'm going to put a bit of blue around the nose and mouth area here. I'll paint that in. And don't worry about getting it really neat. That's something you can do afterwards. Watercolour is a very sort of loose medium, and it's not intended to be really precise and accurate. Right, there we go. So be careful not to go over and over and over the same spot, because as I've already said, that will dissolve the surface of the paper, and if you do it long enough, you'll get a hole in your paper. If you notice some little black dots appearing, that's what's happening. Just let it dry and then it'll be okay. Right, so all of that's quite dark, and you can see if you squint your eyes, I've got the light and dark in the right places. But if you look close up, it's quite messy and loose. And that's fine for now. We'll sort that out later. Then this paw here, it's got a shadow around there. It's got a light bit on this side of it, and then the stomach area is all dark. I think that's dry enough now to get away with. I work quickly, you will work a bit slower, so you probably won't have this problem of the paint still being wet, as long as you don't put big puddles of paint on. And you know how to avoid getting a puddle. Once you've mixed your colour, you always bop the brush onto the tile, and then if it has got too much paint on, the puddle is on your tile instead of on your painting. Running out of that colour, just mix a bit more. Then we'll paint down here, paint that bit, and this is much quicker than coloured pencil. You can cover a larger area much more quickly. So instead of just doing one little bit like I did of the cherries, I'm going to do the whole thing. There we go, and then there's a bit of a shadow in here as well. See, I'm wiggling the brush there to fill the area. Right, and then the final thing is to put the darkest tone on. But before I do that, I'm just going to wash the brush, squeeze the water out of it, and then what you can do is you can blend these colours and tidy them up. I'll show you that a bit closer. So this brush is being squeezed out. See, it's staying flat because I've squeezed the water out. So I can go along this edge here with a damp brush and I can smudge the medium and the light colours into each other. I'll do it again here. Just go around there and it'll blend the colours. Around there it'll blend them. You don't need to do this everywhere, just where you've got a very noticeable hard edge that you want to get rid of. So damp brush, just stroke along it a few times. Now the brush has picked up the paint, so I need to wash it again, squeeze it out again, and then I can rub that edge out. So that's a good way of smoothing watercolour. And even if it's been drying for a week or 10 years, you can still use the damp brush to re-wet the watercolour and blend the edges in. So just a bit of tidying up there. There's a bit that I definitely want to tidy. And this round here. Right, so we've got the light, we've got the medium. I'm just going to get the dark blue. So if I use the same one as before, the colours will blend into each other nicely. I'll use this darkest blue, which is next to the grey on the palette. Don't think you can see the colours very well on the screen. I'm going to have to use a little bit of black to darken it. Perfect. That's perfect for that dark colour. It doesn't have to be exactly the same colour, but it does need to be the same tone. Right, so it's going dark in there. And notice, because I'm working on smaller areas and I'm getting more detailed, you might have noticed I'm holding the paintbrush nearer the tip. So it's more like a pen and I've got a lot more control than when I was doing the big area. So I'll put a little bit of an edge down there. I'm also resting my hand on the table to keep it steady. So all these fingers are on the surface of the book. And then you can be quite precise with the brush. And make sure if you're turning your painting round that you change your reference photo around as well, so you're looking at the same angle. It's the same way up as what you're drawing. Got that dark bit there, got a dark area here, which I guess is going to be the gummy bear eyes. That's what's caused that shadow. Then a bit dark around here, in there, and there's some little squiggly lines in there now. You might not be able to tell what they are, but just put them in. The camera saw them. Even though this is a piece of artwork, I'm sure it's copied from a photograph. So make sure you put them in as well. There we go, shadow there, shadow here, one there, couple there. These are the finishing touches really. One there, yep. You can go on forever, but it's important to know when to stop. And I'm just going to go a little bit lighter for this edge here, because I think my drawing looks like it needs an edge on it. So I'll put that in like that, and you can get. Now people quite often say, do you have a smaller brush? You don't need a small brush, you just need it to be pointy. So if it's been looked after, it'll have a nice point on it, and you can do some very precise lines with that. If you get an even smaller brush, what will happen is it'll dry out very, very quickly, and also they get damaged very easily because they don't have many bristles, and after a couple of weeks in an art room they're wrecked. And I don't actually own any smaller brushes than this. I do quite a bit of watercolour painting at home, but I don't use small brushes, I just use the tip instead. I find it's a better solution. Right, I think that's pretty much finished. I'm reasonably happy with that. When I look at it tomorrow, I'll probably see some things that I want to come back to and alter, but I'll leave that alone for now, and I think that's plenty for you to be going on with. Thank you.